What do you mean you don't eat plants and carbs? You're fucking crazy. How the hell are you gonna come in here and eat like a fucking crazy person? Why can't you just do what all the other motherfuckers in this restaurant are doing, you piece of shit? So today, I wanted to talk about some of my initial impressions of going full strict carnivore, or as strict as I can go. My version, some carnivores would argue just meat, motherfucker, meat and water, meat and water. You know, no dairy, none of that. As far as strictly animal based, all the products that I consume have to come from the animal kingdom. You know, even if they're processed a little into cheese or become yogurt, or, you know, they were like from milk from an animal or something like that, you know, cream, that kind of shit. So anyways, I wanted to go over today some of the initial negatives and positives I've noticed. But there's going to be a big emphasis on the biggest negative thing so far. And that is the social stigma. You see, I got a buddy of mine gave me a concert ticket gift to a Brit Floyd, which is a Pink Floyd cover band. I'm going to go into how they were at the end of the video, so if you're interested in that, stick around. So we go out on our way to the concert. There's about I think it was eight of us. We all go to eat dinner. He had reservations at a small Mexican restaurant near the venue. So I'm thinking Mexican restaurant. How am I going to navigate this? Well, they might have a steak, hopefully. And they definitely have beef of some kind. You know, at the very worst case scenario, I could just get a taco with no veg and scrape the meat out of it and eat that. So there's those options. Since I don't do salads, you know, that removes one of the keto go-tos in those situations that I would do. So, you know, I already had a game plan when I realized it was Mexican. I looked at the menu and it was literally very difficult. Most of the meat products are fried and deep fried or have carbs slathered all over them. And, you know, so it's hard to navigate. They didn't have any burgers or any Americanized, you know, real foods. The steak was about as Americanized as you can get, although it had a certain amount of spiciness to it. So, you know, I order a steak, and so the waitress comes out, and she's taking our order. And to start with, I was immediately uncomfortable. And the reason I was uncomfortable is the whole place was loud. It was filled with motherfuckers that were going to the concert. It was loud. The bar was behind us. You know, you can't hear the other end of the table very well. Either that or my hearing just sucks. So I start yelling my order to her because she's at the other end of the table. She's talking softly. I could barely hear what she's saying, but I felt the need to kind of project. And when I did so, the entire restaurant filled to the capacity with people, overflowing, people standing, waiting, that kind of shit, got quiet. And I was like, okay, I'm that guy. I'm that crazy fucking food guy. You know, the guy that nobody wants to bring to parties, that you don't want to invite to restaurants and dinner because he's going to, you know, complicate it and make it feel like shit. Waitresses are going to hate you because you fucking are, you know, making them work harder to provide you the meal, you know, that you want. when you should just order what's on the fucking menu, you piece of shit. Well, I'm of the mindset that granted, this meal was a barter deal, so I did photography in exchange with my buddy for the meal, and called it even after that. So it's a good deal for him, good deal for me, and so that allows me the experience of eating out. However, when you go out to a restaurant, you're paying for them to give you a meal. You're not paying for them to give you shit. You're not paying for them to give you something you don't want. You are there so that they can provide you with a meal that you want and have it prepared the way you want. You should not feel guilty or have to feel guilty for saying, I don't want veg, I don't want bread, I don't want this, but yet that you know in the back of your head, especially if you've ever worked in the service industry, and I have, that you hate those people. You don't like them. It's a natural reaction, and I'm prepared that I'm going to be pissing off some waitresses as time goes on. Thankfully, I don't eat out a lot. And this is one of the reasons why I don't eat out a lot anymore, is because it's a pain in the ass, not just for me, but for the people that work in these places, because they're just there to provide what they feel is a good, delicious meal. They don't give a fuck about the health of it. They just want to have it be less complicated because they got a bunch of motherfuckers that they're providing food for. So I'm already starting to feel like that asshole. That asshole that has the weird diet that everyone has to kind of pussyfoot around in their food and all of that, and I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to compromise what I'm doing, but I also don't want to take a shit on what everyone around me is doing, because they're doing their own thing, and their goals do not necessarily align with my goals. If they're interested or if they challenge what I'm doing, and argue with me about it, I'm prepared to do that usually, and I'm trying to get better about that. But for the most part, I'm trying to minimize the attention to what I'm doing with the people I'm social with. It's hard to do, and I'm working on it. But in any case, so she comes over finally and is closer, so I don't have to scream out, I don't want any fucking vegetables or bread or carbs on my plate. I was like, I don't want the sides that come with it. All I want is the steak, and I want, some of the shredded meat. But can you take the tomatoes and shit out? And she's like, well, unfortunately, it's cooked that way. There's really not much I can do. And there wasn't much options for that, so I ordered it anyway. And I also got some queso sauce, which is cheese sauce for non-Spanish knowing motherfuckers. Not that I know Spanish. I might even be saying that wrong. So she brings, she goes back, she does the order, and I'm sitting there and we're talking, hanging out and bullshitting here and there and, catching up. The, woman whose bar I work at, she was there with us. So, was kind of catching up with the boss, so to speak, a little bit. And, she's a friend too. I've known her a long time. So we're having this nice little social thing, and then the food starts trickling out after about 45 minutes or a half hour of bullshitting. And, so first she brings out the two steak, because my friend and his wife are both keto. I don't know what influence I had in that. They're both keto right now for different reasons, but they're on their own journey. They had to get there on their own. When I kind of pulled back and stopped fucking with them is when they decided to go all in on it. And I hope they continue to do that, because I do believe it'll benefit both of them in their health. But they bring out their plate, and it had some, I think it was asparagus and maybe spinach or some veg. Of course, my buddy had a salad too, with chicken. And, they got the same steak I did, but they had the sides with it without the potatoes. It was just the veg. I ordered, when I ordered, I said, I want the steak and I want that meat in the queso sauce. So she's like, meat with a side of meat, so I expected a plate with nothing but meat to come out, not a huge platter of meat. It's a pretty modest portion size, but I knew that would fill my appetite for quite a while. I wouldn't be hungry for a while, and I wasn't. I did end up snacking later when I got home. But, So she brings out my plate because I look at their plate. I'm like, hey, just meat with a side of meat. It's a good size. It was about this thick. It was, not as big as some of the portions I eat on my own. But eventually they bring it out, and in the middle of the plate, in a pile of potatoes, sits my rare steak, slapped right in the fucking middle of it. And I had a moment of weakness where I got a little triggered. My expression probably changed to something a little more hostile, or disgusted, or upset. And, there was definitely a moment where I was not a nice person. It wasn't verbally, it was more, and my buddy did poke me in that one moment, and I might have snapped at him a little on the subject because he was trying to defend the waitress. Because, he used to work in that industry too. So he doesn't want people to ever say anything bad about waitresses. But, there are bad waitresses. And it really wasn't her fault. Even if she might have forgotten that I had said that, or assumed one thing or another, the normal pattern is people get these things with their food. They don't stop bringing the extra food. And honestly, if it would have been brought out, and this is why I don't blame her, if it would have been brought out with the sides, I blame the people who prepared it, because here's what they slapped: the fucking meat right in the potato. And even when I'm not a food mixer. I don't like mixing up my foods. I like separating my flavors and variety. When you tend to mix them like that, so already I wouldn't have liked it even if I was normal. But as somebody who is avoiding plant-based and carbs completely, or trying to at least, seeing it in a pile of potato just set something, I was disgusted. I was like, what the fuck is this shit internally? I didn't say anything out loud to that regard, but I was like, this is fucking bullshit. I can't go to a restaurant and be carno without dealing with this. And, but that moment passed. She asked if she wanted to take it back, and I was like, no, I'll deal with it. And I just poked the meat out of there, and I asked her to bring a separate plate, and there was that. And I ended up eating the chip beef, which had a little bit of tomato, like very little. I tried to avoid the tomato, so there was a little pile of little tomato in the bottom. And I probably got some of the peppers in there as well. So I did have some plants during this, but probably still well keto and low carb, very low carb. And, I had the cheese sauce, which hopefully didn't have sugar in it, but it's a gamble. You don't know. So, after that uncomfortableness, I was like, I realized that probably left an impression with everybody I was at dinner with. Definitely left an impression with the waitress, who just wants you to be the status quo customer. They don't want you to make their life difficult. And there's a fine line to walk, and I trying to walk that line towards I don't go out to eat much now. At the same time, I get pissed because if you look at menus now, in this menu had a vegan option. It said vegan right on the menu. So we cater to that group, but a carnivore or a keto has to struggle every time we go out. We have to really choose. There's no keto option or low carb options. There's a few places that have a single low carb item. But you can't just go out and get an officially low-carb meal where they've already done all the math for you. All you got to do is say, oh, I want the low-carb thing, because you know that they did their job, and you're not going to go off your protocol because of that. We, as ketos and carnivores, do not get that luxury, and we haven't. But I would state that there's such a bad stigma on eating meat right now. Thanks to vegans, thanks to our food policy over the last 50 years, thanks to the low-fat, high-carb diet we've been told to eat and continue to be told to eat, that when you stand out, you're going to stand out socially and in any environment where it's just not fucking normal. Now, keto is rough, but it's becoming more acceptable. When you tell somebody you're keto, I've actually had people, oh, you're keto. I'll order coffee with heavy cream, and they're like, oh, you're a keto guy. Yeah, I see. I know. But when carnivore is still in its infancy, as far as a general trend or movement, people aren't lining up to do it. People think it's too restrictive. People, they don't understand the benefits versus what you're giving up ratio, which is what I'm testing. That will ultimately determine if I go back to keto or not. But, this was probably the biggest pain in the ass. And if you travel a lot, if you don't cook, if you, have issues, you're more than likely, you're not going to be able to function as well socially on this diet. Now, that's not true everywhere. I thought it would be easier. I thought any restaurant I could go into, they got some kind of meat. They got a burger, they got a steak, I'm good. They got, seafood that isn't battered, I'm good. If it's grilled, then I should be okay. I'm trying to avoid the leaner meats, but in the pinch, if I need to, I'll eat, some grilled chicken or something. But for the most part, I want to focus on beef. That's the mainstay. That's probably the central part, with eggs being an important component as well, but not trying to overdo it on the eggs. So there was that. As far as physically, how do I feel? I have felt a lot better in a very short period of time. It's weird, and it's to the point now where if I do, and I did get that little bit of plant-basedness, I don't know if it's placebo effect or if it's just my aversion to the glyphosate thing or what have you, but I had a physical response to that dinner, which meant there was probably something that didn't agree with me or that isn't fitting in the diet to where I would notice it. And what happened is I actually gained a quarter inch around the belly, which meant I got bloated. I gained a pound. The weight fell back off. The bloating went back away the next day. And, I'm back down. I'm at 189. I've been a 189 solid. I did go up a little bit at the offset of the diet. When I first started the carnivore experiment, I went up to 191. And now it's dropped back down to where I was, which is 189. I'm not anticipating weight loss. I don't think, a lot of people say you're going to get so much further on this. I'm not thinking that's going to be happening. It might, there's other reasons to explain it. I'm not a strict meat person. I want some dairy. I want cheese. And a lot of the Reddit community that talks about this, which is probably one of my bigger sources of data at this point, because there's a lot of people on that thread that are doing it and successfully doing it, and it's a good place to kind of get an idea of what's working and what's not working. People have a lot of opinions on there, but if you can sort that out, you can get some of the consistencies between what people say. So I'm not, because of that, and the coffee and the heavy cream is frowned upon in my coffee, from what I can tell too, but it still fits. It's still animal based. I'm strict animal based. I don't want to be strict carnivore. I don't know if that's a thing, but it does give me a slightly more diverse subset of foods. Like I can have pork rinds if I want. I can have some sour cream dip that'll occasionally will have some, it's flavored with onion if it has, if it's French onion dip, along with, if depending on how bad the brand is, various other things. I suggest trying to make your own if possible, which I'm going to experiment with, because I did notice that they got that cornstarch in the one that I had been buying, and I'm like, that's essentially sugar. Granted, it's a low amount, very low amount. I think it was 2 grams total. So in 11 grams if you were to eat the whole fucking tub, which I never do. I snack a little and I put it away. I don't sit there and just pluck away at a whole bag and, empty the dip, And I haven't really, I had some of that when I got home, and was watching some stuff last night. So there was that. As far as the bowl, it was rough starting out. I quickly started to research that issue, because if that was an issue, it would be a deal breaker, but it required effort to get my shit out, which isn't normal for me. Normally it just flows, and it required some pushing, and it got out, but it wasn't fun. No blood or anything like that involved, no, issues. It was just work. on the bowl, instead of the normal relaxing dump that we like to take. So there was that. As far as how I feel, that's the most noticeable benefit I've seen. I feel good, and my mood is good. And it hasn't dipped at all yet this week, which isn't normal. Usually I experience a good day, then a kind of a shitty day, and then a good day and a shitty day. And this is despite, not all the news, not everything's roses in my life, and I'm still fine. And that's a pretty significant benefit. If I notice that that's the normal on this diet, and believe me, I've been keeping tabs on how I feel on keto, so I'll know if there's improvement. And it could be placebo. It could be like, oh, this really works. I don't know. Even if it works, I'll do a placebo the rest of my life if that means I won't be depressed at all. Pretty awesome. And I feel even keeled. Not super happy either, though. I did notice I haven't had the euphoria that I sometimes can get. So, I'm just a nice, even, relaxed. I'm not stressed, really. I can get stressed in a short moment burst, of, if something didn't go right or something I didn't like happens, I do feel a stress response. But it very quickly dissipates and I return back to my normal even keel. I don't stress out ahead of time of things. Like I say, I mainly deal with things as they happen and then not for very long after that. I might take steps here and there in a planning in a more intellectual capacity to fix things, but I don't stress and worry about things as much, and I'm not going to. And there's really, it doesn't provide any benefit to feel that way about shit. So overall, the negatives I'm going to deal with. The social thing I can kind of deal with. I want to improve myself in that situation. I know the world around me is not going to cater to being a carnivore anytime soon. It's just not. I'm not going to expect it. I'm not going to ridicule people who give me shit about it. I will be vocal about why I do this when people want to confront me on it. But I don't want to condemn what other people are doing. Sooner or later they're going to realize if they're eating the standard American diet, high in carbs, lots of processed foods, lots of industrial agriculture when they think they're being healthy, but it's really causing them issues. There's going to come a point where they're going to want to change something. And I think we've made enough noise about natural healing and the role of nutrition in those health situations that, they're going to start being able to look and find what they need to change their lives. And I do want that for people, especially very unhealthy people that are suffering and some of them don't even know that they're suffering because they've never felt good. And I want that for people, but I know that I have to let them get there on their own. I want to spread the word, but most of the people I believe that listen to what I say were already reached that point where they need to do something, and what we've been telling everyone to do for the past 50 years just didn't work. They've tried it before and it's failed, or they were successful for a while but then it came back, and or they traded one illness for another illness. I've seen a lot of that in the vegan side of things, by the way. And who knows, is carnivore going to do that for me? I don't know. I've had no indications of that from neither the anecdotal data that I've done, that I've researched, or so far from my own experiences. There are some side effects, socially, obviously, and of course, the bowl issue, as far as that's concerned, I researched. Turns out I need to be drinking more water, especially since I drink coffee. And I need to have, some electrolytes, a little bit heavier dose, probably even more so than when I was on keto. However, the other last physical benefit I've noticed is I haven't cramped in these past 4 days, and usually that's not normal either. Every other day or so, I'll get a foot cramp, usually in the morning. I haven't had that. So, another negative side effect of eating that restaurant is, for the first time in a while, I have a bit of a headache today. So there was something added to that food that just didn't work out. I don't get headaches. I haven't had a headache in a long time. The last headache I had was alcohol related. And so there's that. So I know that the only variable that was different from what I normally do was going to that restaurant. So probably won't be going to that restaurant anymore. I'm not going to name them. The food tasted good, by the way. And, you know, it was presented, it was definitely a nice place. But I don't like the way I feel now after having eaten there. And, of course, there was the contamination of my meat-based diet, which I don't appreciate. If I should be able to go and get the meat. You have the meat. It's very easy just to cook the meat the way you normally do. Throw it on a plate by itself and give it to me. That's not a lot to ask. I know it's weird. You haven't heard of it. It's fucking, outside the box. But so those are the stigmas of the carnivore diet. So then we went to the concert. I like going to concerts. I'm going to Carolina Rebellion in May, as many of you know, and I do have a little bit of a diversity in the music I listen to, and I'm a Pink Floyd fan. Turns out the original owners or the original artists of Pink Floyd own pretty much every aspect of Brit Floyd, which is a cover band. And, they're about an average, medium-sized cover band. It was a decent-sized venue, but it wasn't like a stadium. It was an intimate. You felt like you were there. However, my God, I have never. This has got to be one of the most accurate and best-sounding cover bands I've ever heard. You can tell that they lovingly had attention to detail in every song. The stage show was phenomenal. I mean, there was lasers and fucking everything. It was like a real Pink Floyd show. Which my father, before he passed, was a fan of Pink Floyd, so I got to see a lot of the shows he would show me on TV. I didn't actually go. I've never really been to an original Pink Floyd show. A little earlier in my life, before I came to appreciate them, when they were still doing concerts. And I loved every second of this concert. I was just enthralled by the presentation, the artistry. The light show was a show in and of itself. Like, I would watch a show that just consisted of that light show, but it helped to have Pink Floyd accurately reproduced underneath. So I do know that this band is based in the UK. I know I got a lot of you or I believe part of the band is from the UK. I don't know. I sensed that there was a lot of British going on. So I know some of those of you who are watching are from the UK. But if any of you ever get the opportunity and you see Brit Floyd in your area, I cannot recommend them enough. This show was fucking epic. So here's a little bit of footage from the show, and and I just wanted to leave this video off there, a little bit shorter. We made it to, 35, 40 minutes again. So I'm trying to carve down the times of the videos a little bit to be able to crank them out a little more. So that's all I wanted to say. And it was good to get out and have a little bit of an adventure and be able to share that with you guys. Also, I brought back the fucking green screen. So there's that. This fucking snow's gotta go and shit. Anyways, I just wanted to say I just got done watching Brit Floyd, and that was by far one of the best fucking cover bands I've ever seen. You know, I think there's big bands nowadays that don't put as much effort into putting on a show as they did, and you know, I'm a Pink Floyd fan obviously too, so you know, I wanted to take a moment in this video to thank the person that made it all possible, which is my buddy, sometimes vlogger, Octane, Chris. You know, he goes by many names and shit. Sometimes he goes by asshole when he laughs at me when I fall in the water and shit. But he gave that ticket to me as a Christmas present, and that was pretty good. I was in my element for sure. So now I think I'm gonna go home and chill, because I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're going home, so I think I'm gonna go home and shit. But if you ever see Brit Floyd in your area, check them out. They're fucking awesome. Awesome and shit. So that's it for this little fucking video. And you know, it's going to be a battle when it comes to taking on the carnivore diet while eating out, especially with my trip falling on it. So it's going to be interesting how this all turned out. Have a nice motherfucking day and shit. And like and subscribe. And like, if you found this video helpful or entertaining, put a few bucks in my tip jar at ScottTheTruckDriver.com, and I'll make more shit and shit. So have a nice motherfucking day. Again, this snow, this fucking snow, it fucking sucks. It's spring already. Come on.